Hello everyone, this is Michael Jacobs. I'd like to thank you for joining in on this Jacobs 3D Golf Show. And today we're going to talk about balance. And balance is one of the biggest things in golf. That's what I hear talked about in my golf shop, here out on the golf course at Rock Hill Country Club in Long Island, New York. You'll see golfers out there and they'll be hitting shots, and balance seems to be a premium. And I think golfers feel that and have the sensation of when they're in balance and they're not. But I'm going to turn the tables a little bit, and we're going to talk about balance of the body for a second, and then we're going to move it over to the club. So I think you're going to find this interesting. Here's an image of our 3D biomechanical model of a golf swing. It's called Alpha Man. Dr. Nesbitt and myself have designed the world's first fully in-depth three-dimensional analysis of a golf swing, and that's going to be coming out real soon. And what you're looking at, that blue circle there, is the body's overall balance point or center of mass. And what's meant by that? Well, if I were to take a person and we were to perfectly balance them, if we were going to reorientate them or do whatever we need to do to have them suspended in the air, on that one little point, that balance point, that center of mass, the body or the person or the thing we're talking about would be perfectly in balance at that particular point. So it's like a knife edge type thing when you're trying to figure out how something will balance on its center of mass. And you know, in golf clubs, we all buy golf clubs. You go to the store and you're trying to pick the best head. The head has its own similar type balance point, the center of mass of the head. So when it's not attached to the shaft, let's say the club head comes from the manufacturer, there is a perfect point of balance, and I have one here, the center of gravity finder, and it's interesting because you have to find just the right spot to get it to balance. When you attach the club head to the shaft and the grip, then the balance point changes. So body balance and things like that is easy for the golfer to feel. But I'm going to suggest to you, change your thought for a second on balance and shift it now to the club. So with an assembled golf club, we would want to try to find the balance point of the club. And I'm going to suggest to you that this is a big deal and something you should start to consider in your own golf swing on where that is. Now, there's the balance point of this club. It's suspended nicely and it's not twisting too much. Now, because we have a shaft and we have some weight on the head, the center of mass of the club is probably just off this balance point, right around there. But the point we could identify on the shaft for balance would be right where my finger is. So if I do something when I'm swinging the club and I apply a force to the club, which is what we show in my Jacobs 3D system, at a distance from that, the club will start to twist and turn this way. Kind of like if you were setting up to hit a shot and we had that balance point of view, if somebody pushed you right on there, you would respond differently than, let's say, if somebody pushed you on the head, it would make you start to tumble around. So this point is really important, and it's a good thing to start identifying. So what I did to help you out is I made a little training aid. It's called the Alpha Beta Gamma Ball. Alpha Beta Gamma is three of the terms we use in our 3D system. It kind of sounds like a fraternity, and since I was never in a fraternity in college, the Alpha Beta Gamma fraternity is here for golf nerds. So what do we do with this? Well, it's an orange ball. It weighs about 90 grams, which is maybe 2 grips, the weight of 2 grips. But it's really not designed to add any weight or to hit shots with. But what it does is, it looks like a little orange, and it opens right up, and you could find that balance point of your club. Right? Keep your finger there, and just take the Alpha Beta Gamma ball, stick it right on there. It attaches, and it's nice and firm. And then that'll give you an idea of where the center of mass of the club is. I'm just going to check it, see how it's balancing, and it's balancing pretty well. So now when I do things like make golf swings, I can start to track and see as I make practice swings exactly where that balance point of the club would be. So I use it all the time. You can see the shadow on the screen here. I use it all the time to show people how they pull on the club, the shape of their hub path, and how that responds to the movement of how it's forced or pulled, and how that responds to the movement of how it's twisted on or torqued. So it's a really cool training aid. And when you get started with it, the first thing I would want you to understand is that it's a big deal in a golf swing when this club moves back and this ball, where this ball's located, goes on this side of the movement of your hands on the backswing. There's a big advantage to doing that. And then as you start down, initially keeping that ball on this side of your hands and then letting the ball move out as you come into contact and getting the energy out of your body into that ball and then ultimately into the club head, into the golf ball. So that's a big deal and a really good thing to start monitoring. I think a lot of golfers have really tried to lag the club a lot, and they've tried to get their hands forward, and they keep this orange ball too much inside on this side of the hands too long, and then by the time they come down to hit a shot, they can't get it out the right way smoothly for sure, and then their balance starts to go awry. So start looking at your balance related to the balance of the club, and I think you'll start to see it in a new light. So if I made a swing and I kept the club, the orange ball on this side of my hands, and then I allowed it to smoothly move out, my own balance of my body would be much, much better. So I think that what golfers have to start doing is reverse engineering in their mind. It's not so much 100% what your body's doing, it's also where you have the club and where you have the balance of the club. That'll help your own body balance on what you feel. Now, from this viewpoint, when you look at a swing, a lot of folks, what they'll do is they will get this orange ball to go too far behind them too early, whether they do something early on in the swing to cause that, based on what they're trying to do in their takeaway. That's obviously something we would have to work on in a lesson or discuss. But if the orange ball goes too far behind this way, to get some energy into the club and to get yourself in a position where you could then come down on a decent path to hit a shot, you will have to reroute that orange ball. And now the orange ball will start working around the hands in different ways from this perspective, and that's a big deal. So a drill that I always use with my students is we hold the ball. And we get up to the top of the swing and we practice smoothing out transition by holding the ball and working the way that we would move our body, the joints of our body, and the path of our hub in correlation with that orange ball. So this is a great drill for starting your downswing. I'll do it with the shadow on the wall here, as I do with lessons, trying to get an idea of how that club comes down. The club is kind of smooth in this area of the swing, and then that'll help you feel like you're coming down in a much better transition. Now, there's a big school of thought out there that people want to make the hands go in a completely different direction than the ball comes down, and there's an advantage to that. So the ball would help your teaching too. So I think the Alpha Beta Gamma ball, in its inexpensive nature, with a cool little visual representation of how you can make practice swings at home, I would definitely spend as much time with it as I can. It's probably the only teaching aid that I use on a regular basis, and all my students will have one when they come. So balance for yourself and for the club is a big deal.